Welcome, everyone, to Inside the Box, Episode 1. My name is Bosgan.
My name is Lucas.
We're two passionate football fans in Los Angeles, California. And we wanted to start this podcast because we wanted a platform to discuss our ideas, our analysis about the beautiful game. I'm myself an Arsenal supporter, but I love football. And so the more I can talk about it, the more happy I am. So I'm excited. How about you, Lucas?
Well, I'm not an Arsenal fan, thankfully. I'm a Barcelona fan, which is, I guess, not too obvious for my jersey. But hey, yeah. As Vasquez said, the reason we started because we just love this game. And
Yeah, and today, I think since the Champions League rounds of 16 concluded this week, we want to go a little bit over the games that happened.
yeah, and let's start with the Champions League, the holy grail of football, I guess, our favorite tournament. No, not the World Cup, the Champions League. Let's do it. I think, should we start with the most boring, I guess, tie?
Yeah, let's do that. Which one is that going to be?
Of course, it's going to be the
Man City
Copenhagen
one?
Yep, Copenhagen Man City. You know it. Although I gotta clarify myself, it's not the most boring tie in terms of football. It's the most boring tie in terms of.
It just was obvious.
It's obvious. We knew what's going to happen, but I gotta give lots of credit to Copenhagen. I've seen their every game in the Champions League this year, and I've been impressed every single time they played.
Yeah, they don't get to the round of 16 often. And where wasn't Manchester United in that group? Sorry, Manchester United fans, but
Yeah.
I personally think the fact that they were able to get out of that group was impressive.
I mean, the fact that they went past United did not impress me that much as the fact that they went past Galatasaray, which were very stuck this season. They looked very impressive. Expected actually them to be the second team to go out of the group stage, sorry, but no, it was Copenhagen.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about it. What do you think about the first two legs?
Honestly, I'm more impressed by Copenhagen, and I'm even more disappointed with Man City performance. I know you also talked about how Man City just don't perform the same level as they did last year, which I fully agree with on you. And yeah, it was result wise, it looked very easy, but performance wise, it did not look as entertaining, I would say, as Man City fans would expect. So yeah, I actually liked how Copenhagen played. They played with very good dynamic, very good pressure, with lots of passion, especially at home game with the help of their fans. So yeah, but Man City looked kind of flat, to be honest to me.
So why do you think that's the case? Because my opinion is they lost Gundogan, they lost Mahrez, and they didn't really replace those players with the quality that I would expect. And I also think Grealish was really good last year, and not having him really consistent this year. And Doku was good signing initially, but hasn't been really great ever since. I feel like he's become predictable, and so without real wingers, without a proper midfield that can press, I feel like those are the two reasons why you're seeing a little bit of a decline from Man City.
Yeah, definitely. I think the part of integrating Bernardo Silva as your main midfielder has been a problem. He's much more comfortable on the wing. He's still a great player in the central midfield position, but he's much more comfortable as a winger. Although he's not your typical winger, but he does his job pretty well on the wing. And yeah, as you said, Doku. Besides the few games that when he just came to Man City, when he was surprising, he was like it's like a new effect, was like a wow effect on every opponent. But once the opponents learn how to play against him, you realize how much that player lacks discipline. And when I say discipline, is more of a positional discipline. He doesn't understand when to pass the ball, when to stay wide, when to come narrow. He doesn't put his head up and to see where the opponents are. He's just not playing Man City football right now. And also, I kind of disagree with you on the idea that Grealish was good last year. I don't think he was good last year. I think he was just doing his main job, which was to keep the game simple, keep the ball whenever it was needed. I don't think he was offensively that impressive to me.
I mean, the fact that they won the treble and that he was committed to the way Man City play football especially a player that if you had to describe him a few years ago, you would say that he's one of those players that has this specific quality about him that he's very individualistic and he can create goals just by himself. And to go from that to more of a system player, that's what I was impressed about.
That should have been impressive actually about him. And when he just came to Man City, I found that transfer actually ridiculous because he's the type of guy who just needs to be the main star. Just give me the ball and I'll create everything. And I thought his personality is not going to be able to adjust to the demands of Guardiola. But props to him, he did very well in that subject. He was very disciplined to listen to Pep. Even the first year when he was mainly on the bench, he was patient. There were no complaints, no drama stories from him. So I like that part about him. But yeah, again, I just think the players like Sane or Sterling are the perfect type for Guardiola when it comes to wingers because they're quick, they're sharp, and they can create chances out of nothing. They understand the positional awareness of just staying wide, and he doesn't have players like that. And lastly, as you said, Gundogan left them, and thank you for coming to Barcelona. He's our best player this season, hands down. And yeah, so what's good about Gundogan? Sorry, I forgot his name for a second. What's good about him is that not only offensively he is amazing, we all know that, but his understanding of the game of when to high press in the midfield, when to keep the ball, when to explode the tempo, when to slow down the game. He has the perfect understanding, and that's what helps you both offensively and defensively. And Man City cannot replicate that. They signed Kovacic. He is good, but he's very limited at what he's good at. And they signed Ruben Neves, and sorry, not Ruben Neves, I forget Neves, but he's Ruben, but I forgot his name. I apologize. So yeah, and Man City, I think for that reason they struggle and they have not been impressive against Copenhagen.
Okay, let's move on to the next tie.
Honestly, I want to go talk about next tie, but also at the same time, don't want to talk about it because emotionally, I hate that tie.
Are we talking about Madrid?
It's always Madrid. Madrid
Yeah,
in Champions League hates me more than anything in my life. So yeah, what do you think? I think the main thing we have to talk about is the goal that Leipzig scored, but it was disallowed. What do you think about it?
I think Madrid got away with one. I think the goalie, from the angle, it looks like he is getting blocked, but I don't think he was going to be able to save that regardless. That goal was going in. And so I think the refs really should have sided a little bit differently there. Because I think a lot of times this is one of my pet peeves is when a foul happens or goal happens like that, they also have to take into account was the goalkeeper able to save that shot? Because yeah, maybe he was blocked, maybe he was in the way and he was behind him, but the goal was going to go. So even if he didn't do that, the result would have been a goal. So I just don't see how you can call that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just unfortunate the way the rules are written. They don't allow any subjective, uh, any subjective view on the episode. So the referees are not allowed to interpret it as, oh, I don't think goalkeeper wasn't going to go get to it. They still look at it as a factor, but it's not the main factor. The issue here is that if we're gonna talk about every single soft touch in the box as a foul, it's just makes the game less interesting. Sure, the Leipzig player is offside and he interferes with the Lunin's attempt to go for the ball, but we have to be realistic here. He is not getting to the ball. It's one of those cases that I was surprised. I was surprised they disallowed it. I'm not gonna go into conspiracy theories that Real Madrid gets all the help. No, I think referees just make mistakes inconsistently. So yeah, just felt bad for Leipzig, to be honest.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things, the Madrid magic. It just happens in the Champions League. They just turn up a different way, and sometimes the referees also turn up for them. So
Yeah, I know it's to be honest. If we talk about strictly performance to performance comparison, I think Leipzig were slightly the better team, especially if we talk about the second game. The amount of chances they missed, the saves that Lunin made. I was I'm not gonna say I was surprised. I was just laughing because it's a typical Madrid performance in the Champions League. But you gotta give it to them, don't you?
Yep, yep, exactly.
It takes lots of experience,
I
lots
guess
of
we can move
goals.
on from the Madrid, just because I know you don't like talking about
It
it.
seems like it hurts you too, huh?
Yeah.
Talk about it. No, I think I just more like want to give credit to Leipzig. As same thing with Copenhagen. I like the dynamic teams like that, and they created lots of chances. But again, in Champions League, the margins are narrow. If you want to go past big teams, you have to score with chances. And yeah, that's exactly what did not happen for Leipzig. So congratulations to Real Madrid, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So that concludes that second tie. I think all the ties after that are more interesting. Although I think the third one we want to talk about, although it's my favorite team, I think it's also we have to put into category of just boring ties. It's Barcelona versus Napoli.
Why do you say it's boring?
As poor as Barcelona is this season, I think this is one of the worst Barcelona teams I've seen since the last season of Rijkaard, which was 2008, 16 years ago. 2007, 2008 season, that was the last one, and it was terrible. So yeah, as poor as Barcelona is this season, Napoli are much worse.
Yeah, they're seventh in the league. I'm not sure what happened from last year, and I'm not sure why both teams are struggling. You want to give a little insight onto Barca?
Barca, I think Napoli deserves the main. I'll start with Napoli because their answer is the most obvious. You don't remove Luciano Spalletti from your coaching position. I think he basically left himself. It was a mutual decision, seems like, because he wanted to go the next level with Napoli. He wanted transfers, but as we know, De Laurentiis, Napoli's owner, is a very cheap person. He doesn't want to spend money, but I guess he doesn't care at that point. He won the league. It's probably the biggest achievement of Luciano's career. So he did his job. He left Napoli. They got very wrong coaches. All two of them. I don't know. It's probably the worst decisions that the owner of Napoli could have made, because he's the one making all the decisions. And yeah, so bad coaching choices, and yeah, bringing Rudy Garcia back, and then also trying with their other coach. I forgot his name, Mazzari. Yeah, sorry, and absolutely terrible coaches, both of them, and that's the reason I didn't believe in Napoli at all.
And then for Barca, well, why do you make that claim that they're the worst Barca?
I know, probably
since 2008.
I know, probably you want to.
That's pretty surprising. They just won the league last year.
I know you want to throw some XG stats at me, right? And be like, Barca. I know you like XG stats and be like, Barca creates lots of chances. We do actually create lots of chances compared to other teams in Europe.
I'll be honest. I think outside of this tie, Barca in the big games have been weak. And I think that's the issue. A lot of the big games against Real Madrid, against a lot of the strong teams in La Liga, Barca don't show up a lot of times. That's what I feel. And then against the smaller sides, they take care of business. And so I think maybe it's just Xavi's style. Maybe it just hasn't clicked. And I think a little bit of the injuries at the beginning of the season also played into that. They had a lot of injuries. Gavi's out for the whole season. Pedri's injured in and out all the time. But you could see that there's a lot of talent coming up in Barca. I think the young talent is phenomenal. You had two 16-year-olds. It was 17 and 16-year-old playing in the Champions League round of 16. And I think your center back was the best player of the game. And so I think I'm a little upset that Xavi is leaving, because I think one more season he might have been improving those. Because I think when he came in, he first said, I need to get results. I need to win a title. And he did that. And then the next season, I think he's trying to build. And he sees that there's going to be a transition, and there needs to be a little bit of a build between playing more young players. And maybe I see that. I know you don't. I know we've had this argument many times. But what do you think?
The reason I would go back to your first question, I think this is the worst Barca team when it comes to actual perform. Since Riker last season is the pure performances. If I talk about just eye test to eye test, it's been awful. It's very tough to watch the Barcelona team, and again, I've seen some pretty bad Barcelona teams. This is awful in terms of ball control, fluidity of the game, the movement, the transitions. Everything is bad. There is no high pressing. It's just regressed so badly under Xavi. His first half a season when he got us into the Champions League, well, because when he took over the team, we were ninth, I believe. So he did an amazing job in half a year. We were playing amazing football. We got back into the Champions League, and that was the best 5-6 months of Xavi's job at Barca. After that, it's been nothing but awful. Even the
Okay, so here's the question: if Barcelona win the Champions League, do you want Xavi to go or do you want him to stay?
Well, I'll be honest. It's not like I was fired Xavi right now. I wasn't that kind of a person. I think, I was critical of him. I thought the poor performances were he's the reason for them, not the injuries. He is the main person. He's the main problem why the performance have been so poor. But at the same time, he's a club legend who love him all. So it wasn't like fire Xavi right now. We tired of him. No, it's just I think as Barca fans, at least personally, I was drained by this team. So it just felt like it was coming to an end. And that loss to Villarreal when we lost 3-5. I think everyone, the players, the board, Xavi, all the fans understood that this has to be the end. The team has regressed so badly compared. I'm not going to talk about last year. I know you're going to say you won the league last year. Stop complaining, right?
As an Arsenal fan that has not won the league for over 20 years, I think it's fair to say when you win the league, you should be happy.
We were happy we won the league, and that's why we sort of closed our eyes to all the performances we've had last year, because last year we were just getting carried by Ter Stegen's magic and defense being insanely solid. We had Araujo who would just stop every single attack. But this year...
But here's my viewpoint here. Just seeing how my team, Arsenal, have progressed under Arteta, the initial phase is to be defensively solid, right? So I understand why they were more defensively solid than focused on the offensive side. I think you need a whole team of talent to be able to press high up, because a lot of the new generation teams, the way they defend is from the front. And so when you have players that are pressing monsters and are really good off the ball, then you can get the ball back earlier, you can get a lot of interceptions, and you can start the attack. But I feel like with Barca, the issue is they have some weak points in their team that don't allow that to happen. And then when you have one weak point, other teams focus on that and they're able to break through. And so I just feel like the type of signings the leadership at Barca have signed have been very short-term minded, and that was good for last year. But I think now they need to move away from that model and realize that their own academy is probably the best in the world. Why not go with that and give these players a chance? And you're seeing that happen, but I want to see a coach that introduce those players continue, because I just don't see which coach is going to come and fix that situation to the way that you want it.
Well, I'll be honest, when you say those youngsters that we have, sure, La Masia has been one of the best academies in the world for a long time. And yeah, the youngsters we have are amazing, but at the same time, it's a blessing and it's also a curse, because they're so amazing at that young age that they're getting played 50, 60 games a season. We've seen that to happen to Pedri, who in his first season or second season as a Barca player, he played full season, every Champions League game. Then he went to European Cup 2020, although it happened 2021. He went there, he played all the way up to semifinals, right? Spain went. And then after that, he didn't go on vacation. He went to Olympics games. So that, I think that season alone, he played like 7 games or something at that age. So when they're that good at super young age, it's insanely bad for their muscles, for their cartilages.
So I think that maybe was happened to Fati, right?
Fati has been a little bit different issue. He's been unlucky with his, I think first injury was more of like a If I'm not mistaken, it was a contact injury.
Hmm.
And then he got another injury, and he chose a conservative treatment instead of surgery, and which is not always recommended. That's what happened to Umtiti, who also opted out of actual surgical intervention, and he went with conservative treatment, but he did that to go to the World Cup, and he won the World Cup. So you could say it was a fair exchange. But when it comes to Barca, again, our youngsters are so good that every time Yamal plays, I feel bad because this boy needs to rest. He's 16 years old. He's getting kicked. He's getting nasty tackles, and I understand he's gonna go down the path of Pedri, Gavi, and today the news came out that Spanish Federation wants to use Kubarsi, our new amazing defender, both at Olympics and also European Cup. So I'm kind of trying to understand what's happening. What's the point of us developing these youngsters at this young age?
I do definitely think that they need to protect them better. I think
But the issue is that the news say
it's just really hard.
when you're
They're that
17,
talented.
when you're 17-year-old to replace this, Inigo Martinez, who's one of the best defenders in Spain, you're like, I cannot bench him. He's my best player. But at the same time, you understand you're risking him getting injured because those injuries that happen, they come. Yeah, sure, Pedri twisted his ankle, but why does that happen? It happens because he's just tired. Out of tiredness, your body just cannot react to those sudden twists of your ankle. Same thing to Gavi. Yeah, he misplaces his leg, his knee is gone. But why? Because he's tired. So those whenever we say they don't overplay the players, it's a big issue. So yeah, but also you mentioned about Xavi now winning big games. Well, the reason we're in trouble financially is actually because of Xavi. Because last season, when he did not go to the group stage, when we lost the group stage, we lost a lot of money. It cost us a lot of money to not go to the group stage.
Mhm.
It was mainly on Xavi because, again, the Inter games have been awful. It was understandable that Bayern, we're not going to pass them, but at least beat the Inter games, and we just been super bad against them. So and then we go to Europa League. We play United, who are not that good, and they basically outplay us again.
Mm.
So when people say we don't have the money, but it's also partial on Xavi and his signings.
Yeah, yeah.
You know how critical I am of Rafinha. I still think this awful signing. I don't know. He's 27. He can dribble. He can pass. He can. Sure, he takes 26 attempts to cross the ball. Once one of them reached the destination, we're like, oh, look at his crosses. But yeah, he lost the ball 25 times before that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
We can move on now.
we can. Yeah, just to conclude. Yeah, I think Barcelona were just both Napoli and Barcelona are terrible, but again, it's just Barcelona
was a little bit better.
slightly more experienced team. We have better players, I guess. But yeah, Napoli actually did not play that bad. They had their chances, but you could tell the difference in class between the teams. So yeah, that'll be about that tie. What else do we have? You want to go through Dortmund game?
Yeah, we could do that.
I don't know how much have you heard of PSV success this year, how amazing they have been.
I know that they've only lost 2 games, and they played us this year in the group stage. And
They beat you, didn't they?
no,
No.
it was RC Lens that beat us.
How did they play a home game against you? I know you
Home
got-
game was a closer game, but away, I mean, our home game, it was not a close game.
Yeah, it was not a close game.
I think we beat them pretty heavily.
4-0, I think, was
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. And then the away tie was a lot closer. I think it was.
I'm trying to. I think they
I
beat
don't
you.
remember if it was a draw or no. It was RC
Let me
Lens
look
that
it
beat
up
us
because
too.
I remember them winning.
Yeah,
No, it's 1-1. It's 1-1.
Yeah, I know. I remember this.
You remember not losing, huh?
I don't remember winning, but I don't remember losing. So I know we only lost against RC Lens 2-1. But they were a lot better at home, and then at the Emirates they were poor. They were naive, and the coach is very, very attack minded. Reminds me a little bit of with Leeds Bielsa, where they just would have man on man marking and just fly forward and not really worry about the defense and structure. And so I wasn't surprised that Dortmund did well against them, but I also don't think Dortmund has been doing that well this year.
Interesting. I was actually having a conversation with my friend, and before before when the draws just happened and PSV were drawn with Borussia Dortmund, I actually I would say 50-50. I would say I was thinking that PSV, I was thinking PSV have a chance because they were impressive. I know they lost to you, but any attacking team pressing like headless chicken. Sorry for the
It's true.
comparison, but that's what it looks like from the side because it just looks ridiculous. Any team that presses like that against you, you guys gonna outplay them. So that's what happened actually, and yeah. But when it comes to actually the game against Dortmund, Terzic just I don't like his Dortmund set. Terzic, he's not Borussia level coach, and yeah, they did amazingly well in champion in the group stage, and I was surprised actually. I think they got the first place in the group stage, right? So, but in my head, I was thinking PSV are gonna do much better job. I was actually I think they were the most disappointing team for me this in this tie because in this Champions League draw, I would say the entire 116 round,
Yeah.
aside maybe from Inter, but we'll talk about that later. But when it comes to PSV, I expected much more from them. Their league record has been amazing this season. They're flying high, and now I like their football, very attacking. And I was expecting that they will make Dortmund struggle a little bit more. The the first game, which ended 1-1, the only goal they scored was a ridiculous penalty, which is not a penalty. And that was about it, I want to say. They had a couple of chances, but overall, Dortmund controlled them. And surprisingly, though, the second game away, PSV were actually, they had more chances. They had very good chances, but it was already too late. Dortmund were winning the game 1-0. It was 2-0 aggregate, so the game was done. Too late to create the chances, I guess.
Yeah, and if you're playing offensive football and you only score one goal, it's going to be hard to beat Dortmund. I felt like their defense wouldn't be able to only allow one goal against PSV just because of how attacking minded they are and the way that they press. But I guess that's the thing about the German league. It's a lot of those teams are pressing teams, so they're used to it. And so maybe a different style of team, it would have been interesting. So I would have been interested to see like a PSV versus a Porto, for example, go against each other. That would have been an interesting tie. Two different opposite systems going against each other.
I think that would be an embarrassing for PSV.
Right? But it would have been
It would
it
be
would have been
interesting,
interesting to see what type of style wins the
well,
day.
considering that Porto almost stopped Arsenal. Imagine
Yes.
what they could have done to.
And we could talk a little bit about that
Well, I
later
have
too.
actually a very controversial take on that
Yes,
tie.
you do.
But yeah, so yeah, I guess just PSV have been disappointing, and Dortmund reached the quarterfinal. That's
Yeah.
surprising. I wouldn't say that was going to happen at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So next tie that we should talk about, which ones were left? I think we should address PSG one. I think
Yeah.
we also see that. Have you seen the games or?
I just saw some of the results. Mbappe scored a few times. So honestly, that was like, to me, I don't know what to expect from PSG this year. They've been, I mean, I like Luis Enrique as a coach. Don't get me wrong. But I just don't see a style there yet. I don't know if his identity has really been applied at PSG. What do you think?
I agree with you. As again, since I'm a Barcelona fan, obviously I've been following Luis Enrique to see how he is doing at the team, trying to see what he is exactly going to do. Is he going to do like a direct football like he did with Messi, Suarez, Neymar? Since he has similar type of player in Dembele, Mbappe, and Colomwani, I thought maybe he'll implement something like that. But now he's been more trying to be more possession-based football, and that has not been working out so well. We've seen that in the game against Newcastle when they lost 4-0. That was a very poor performance. They were completely outplayed. And honestly, if we also see that at slightly better players, it was going to be the same result as Newcastle game.
Yeah, yeah. Didn't what was the result in the group stage with Newcastle? Didn't they beat them pretty heavily?
It was 4-1. It was 4-1, yeah. With
yeah.
the last, I think PSG scored one goal at the end. The game was over at that point. So we also see that again.
And that's what I mean about the PSG this year. They've just been to me, it's been like kind of all over the place. You don't really know what to expect. They have the quality. They have the quality. And one thing I was surprising to hear was once Mbappe leaves, they're going to be heavily investing into young players and following the like a completely different model from what I've used to from PSG. You know, it reminds me a little bit about how like Real Madrid kind of switched from the Galacticos and they started investing into like more younger, less known names that were as talented and were just better together as a team. So I wonder if that's where PSG is going to go going forward, and that they now that they're going to lose Mbappe and most likely going to Madrid, unfortunately for you, it's going to only get tougher.
We are not scared. We're not scared at all.
I think he has so much more potential in a proper team.
Have you seen Kubarsi defending? I have no problem at all.
It's going to be an interesting year next year.
I mean, it would be a great comparison with Real Madrid, but I think the biggest difference is that PSG have got idiots running the club, while Real Madrid have got...
That's a hard claim.
It's the truth. If after the loss you go and attack the referee in his dressing room, you're an idiot. So I'm sorry, it's the harsh truth. And PSG, with all the potential they had, they've been ruining that potential years and years. And yeah,
that's an interesting point you bring up. I don't know how long it was ago when they were bought, but
I think 2008, 2009, or I'm sorry, I think 2009, 2010.
Okay, so
something like that.
You would say it's been about 15 years since they've been purchased, and I think most people would agree that the ultimate bar for them was to win the Champions League. I don't think anybody really respects the French league as much as people want them to, but I just think no matter what team coach they've had, which I think the best coach for them was Tuchel. He was doing the best job there. And even that didn't work out. He got them to the Champions League final. But
you don't believe he's a top quality manager, don't you?
We can talk about that for the round of 8. But I personally think for PSG, he did a good job. And their coaching hires and the way that they do their business, they're like Chelsea, but they're not getting the results, you know? So they follow that Chelsea model where they're just very ruthless. And I'm talking about the Chelsea before
with Abramovich.
The American ownership. So
yeah,
every few years you don't perform, you don't win the Champions League, you're out. And so they've had great coaches, but it seems that the issue is not the coaching, it's the leadership. They don't have the right team together to win. And so there's no identity there that I feel like I can align with. Like when you say PSG, can you think about what their playing style is? Like do they have an identity that you can know?
Playing style, no. Identity, no. Not with their transfer policies, not with their signings, nothing. I see no mentality. But then it's hard to establish mentality and identity at the club when every 2 years you have a new coach, and not saying new coach, saying completely new coach with a new play style. You cannot do that. The
only identity you can have in that situation is if you win, and then people will say they're winners.
I know
they're ruthless. They win, and so they just change the team, and that's kind of what I guess Chelsea has been, where everyone saw that it was a little bit unfair for the coaches to get fired a lot of times, but then they ended up winning the Champions League multiple times, and they won the Premier League multiple times, and so people were okay with it, even though they didn't really have an identity.
But did Chelsea and you fire a coach unfairly? I'm trying to remember.
I feel like Ancelotti, for example.
Ancelotti,
he wasn't fired.
It was a pure firing for not winning the Champions League, basically.
That's exactly what I've been talking about.
But that's the only one I can remember.
Well,
it's just they're not patient. If you're not performing, you're out, basically.
Yes, that is true.
But the PSG again serve with their coaching changes. They go from might not be exactly the same timeline, but you cannot go from Ancelotti, who is very open-minded, who lets the players have their freedom, and then you go to Unai Emery, who is very structural, very tactical, and then you go to Tuchel, who again tactical but completely in a different way. And now you go to Luis Enrique. It's just you need to establish
so many different systems, so many different identities. that's an issue. That's why you see clubs like a Barca, like a Real Madrid. They always hire the type of coaches that fit their model, fit their identity.
Which has been actually the biggest problem with Barcelona. We'll talk about that one day too.
Yes.
But yeah, PSG, the day they fired Tuchel, it was there. I thought, okay, this club is over. That's it. You cannot fire. You're probably one of the most successful coaches in recent time.
And then a little bit about, I know we've been talking a little bit more about PSG, but for Real Sociedad, what do you think about them? How do you think this result ends with them? I feel like PSG were vulnerable. So I feel like maybe they had a chance this year. There's no expectation, but what do you think? The coach, Emmanuel.
I think his last name is not that easy to say, so I'm going to skip on that one. Yeah. So, yeah, actually, he's been very underrated in the world if we talk about what the job he has done. Sociedad, I want to say Villarreal, sorry, Real Sociedad. He's been amazing. His teams are a bit sometimes difficult to watch. The numbers, tell the picture because the amount of goals they score and concede, both numbers are insanely low. So, yeah. But they sometimes every time you watch them in big games, I like how they play. It's very brave. It's very pressing. They're very compact, and it's not easy to play against them. I hate when Barca gets to play against them, and that's exactly what happened. The first game, PSG struggled a lot with the high pressure system introduced by. You also see that they had no idea what to do with that high pressure, and it was the pure Mbappe game, I guess, to just score one goal and kill off the opponent. And that was the scenario in the first game. Same scenario in the second game when, high pressure. Luis Enrique adapted it to play against their high pressure, but it was the same picture when the Real Sociedad created lots of chances, but lacked, not going to say quality, but probably experience at that age because, at that stage because, of course, if you're playing in a Champions League playoff, you have the quality, but to deal with the mental pressure of scoring your chances against big teams, that's what they struggle with mostly.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to move on to the next time?
So I think we should go the first one that was interesting for only one game, and the second game was completely disappointing, is the Lazio Bayern tie. I had one perspective on the game and what happened, but the recent news that came out that Sarri left the club. He wasn't fired. He just left himself. He basically told the picture that something has been wrong at Lazio for a long time. Actually this season only because last season, they still had issues in the dressing room. I know how much you heard about it. They had lots of dressing room problems last season, but last season they were going second place. They finished second place. So even if you have sort of like personal problems with anyone, if you're getting results like that, you're not going to complain. So last season they were all happy. They were in the bubble saying, you know what, we love each other. It's all amazing. But this season when problems started and the results weren't that good, everything sort of exploded at the club. And I think the first game when finishing 1-0, Lazio winning the game just showed not that Lazio are still good. It showed how poor this Bayern side is.
I think the first game was before Tuchel announced that he was going to leave at the end of the season, correct?
I don't know if he announced it. It's just lots of rumors came out that that's true, and he's sort of like, I don't know, maybe I missed it.
He hasn't officially announced it?
But I think it was lots of rumors in newspapers. Maybe I missed his announcement, but I think that officially happened. But he's sort of like checked out right now, and even like to the point that
I think the first game, the issue with Tuchel is everywhere he kind of goes, I see this happen where he either doesn't get along with the board or he doesn't get along with his team. He has this very decisive personality, and I don't think he has that personality to build those like strong relationships with some of these players. And so I'll give you an example. I think Kimmich, for example, we can bring him up. He wants to play in the midfield. Guardiola turned him into a midfielder. He used to play a little bit of a right back, but then he wanted to play midfield. And Tuchel was hesitant of doing that because he wanted him to play right back because they don't have a strong right back. So the team needs a right back.
Yeah,
But the problem is,
to add to the point of
how do you do
Kimmich, the issue with Kimmich that he has is that Tuchel likes to have one defensive good midfielder.
Mm-hmm.
And since one of the midfielders is Goretzka, who is more of box-to-box situation, he's not going to defend for you that consistently. He's going to be more of an attack situation. So it was Kimmich just staying in the back. But he himself is not going to carry that drop of defending alone in the essential midfield position. So that's why him moving Kimmich on the right was kind of like, hey, I'm not sure how many games he actually put him on the right back, but
I mean, he's playing right back now.
I stopped watching their games recently because it just became sort of disappointed.
Really, I think they've improved since he's announced because I think he's made some decisions. Like he brought Mueller back into the team. He's been playing Kimmich as a right back, where before he was not even playing. And then they have a youngster now. I don't know his name. I forget his name, but he's playing as like the holding midfielder. I think he's like 17 or 18 years old, and he's doing really well. And then their attack is really good. The issue I have with that team is how is Eric Dyer the center back for that team? I just don't get that. I don't know what he sees in him. I really don't. I'm sorry, but a Spursy, he will always be Spursy.
I know you hate him for being a player at
I
Spurs,
don't hate him. I just think he's not that good.
but that's the problem with Bayern. Like it's such a mess of a club. I think Dyer he does his job pretty well as of being semi defender, semi midfielder. Like he is very good at controlling the ball, making long passes, and that's what Tuchel likes. He likes the defender to be able to switch the ball quickly to the wingers. He likes that in Dyer. And yeah, defensively, Dyer is a liability. He can make a dumb mistake every single time. So yeah, that's what actually happened to him at Spurs. You think, oh, Dyer is doing amazing, and then next game he'll just come up with something. You're like, okay, I never actually said that you were amazing. Forget my words.
So if we go to the game in the Bundesliga with Bayern and Bayern playing, I remember what they did. They pretty much pressed everyone except for Dyer. They just let Dyer have the ball and said, hey, do something. And pretty much he couldn't. And that's how they kept getting the ball back because they kept giving it to Dyer and he wasn't able to really control the game that way. And so I feel like the one strategy I would have as an Arsenal fan going into this next tie would be doing that. And so I just think if they like what's going on with their other center backs? Like why is Upamecano not playing?
So
Why is
Upamecano is just I know. I just feel bad for the guy. I liked him at Leipzig a lot. That he's like the next best thing in the world when it comes to center backs. But no, he's been disappointing. I think he
I
probably
think he
has.
switches off a lot.
He has some mental issues in terms of he cannot keep his focus.
Mhm.
Because if you look at the mistakes he makes, it's not that like he loses the track over striker and the striker scores. No, he just makes absolute blunders of mistakes that you're like, no, the defender at that level should not make it. Remember last year when he gifted the ball to Grealish? What was that about? Then second game again, he just falls down. I know he got kind of slipped there, and then he also makes a mistake. Thankfully, was offside. He makes a foul on Holland. Holland basically falls down because why not? And it's a red card for Upamecano, but he was saved by an offside call. So Upamecano has just been a liability. He's an amazing defender with his quality he has, but if you're mentally not ready not to make a mistake on that level, it's a problem. So
what about their other defender?
So the Kim,
Yes.
who came from Napoli, he's been very good for them, but he got injured for a long time. So their defenders literally were De Ligt, who actually had big conflicts with Tuchel. So that was their only solution available, basically.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, it's just not Lazio. Yeah, I thought first of all, if you're playing against them and Bayern, who are very very poor, you should create much more chances and try to get more than 1-0 result from the first game, because going to Allianz Arena with only 1-0 advantage, you have to be defensively solid, and that's the last thing we can expect from Sarri's teams. So yeah, I guess sort of like Bayern are terrible, but all the problems that Lazio have this season kind of were exposed on that game.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. I think we should talk. Which ones have we not covered? We haven't covered, I guess,
We haven't covered Inter
and we haven't
and
covered.
Atletico and Arsenal and Porto.
Okay, so which one should we keep Arsenal till the end? I know you.
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay, let's talk about the Inter Atletico.
Okay, so
Okay, let me ask you, how surprised are you by the result?
I'm very surprised.
Oh.
Inter have been absolutely dominant this year defensively, and so to see that
So it's
result
offensively,
happening, yeah, they've been good offensively, but I just feel like they're just
defensively, yeah.
defensively so structured, so good. And I thought they peaked last year, but I feel like they're a lot better this year. And so, honestly, if they had made it through, I would have thought that they would have went to the final again this year. I feel like they would have been the strongest team on that side.
Oh, definitely, 100%. But then,
And so, I'm not sure what happened in that second leg. Obviously, it went to penalties, and penalties are a toss 50-50, honestly. So,
disagree on that one.
I mean, I've seen enough penalties that even if Messi is taking the penalty, you're nervous because you just don't know. Sometimes things happen. And I saw a video, I think yesterday, where when I was looking at that last penalty by Martinez.
Oh yeah, the ball.
The ball, like, it seemed like as if like somebody from the bottom of the floor, like, popped the ball honestly, up right before he hit the ball, like as if there's maybe somebody working down there. And
I mean, it's Simeone's team home game in Champions League. I would not be surprised if that was the game plan. Atletico were magnificent. This was the top level Atletico that I'm gonna remember Simeone by. It's one of those games where like, okay, this is typical Simeone.
Yeah.
And yeah, Atletico of course got away with the first game, but the second game to perform like that, they did not have their one of their main defenders, Jimenez, who in a high pressing game like that, you need him because he has the speed. Because Savic and Witsel, who play the center backs this game, they just don't have the legs to run.
Yeah.
But they were successful in that high pressing system that night. So yeah, I liked it. I was impressed. I was surprised they actually worked out so well for Atletico. They should have finished up the game right even before they went to extra time with the pie hitting the post. So yeah, I was disappointed by Inter. I think Inter just looked kind of scared. They weren't themselves in the second game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you felt the same way.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're tired. I don't know. I don't want to make excuses for them, but I think the new stadium for Atletico Madrid is also really nice. Right? They made that in 2017. I think the fans were really into it. I think Simeone has a way of some sort of like Madrid magic in the Champions League. I think they just haven't won the Champions League, right?
They haven't, no.
But they went to the final multiple times. And so I think, I don't know. I think Simeone's teams do really well in cup ties. I remember when Arsenal went up against them in the Europa League,
yeah.
And they were really tough, honestly. So
I mean, it was the same performance when you were playing with one man up. I think that game for the most of the time you had one player advantage, but
yeah,
you created lots of chances, but at the end, one mistake by I think Koscielny made a mistake. You guys considered Atletico scored 1-1, and the away game was just I knew if you guys going to go away Atletico Stadium with 1-1 result, you guys are done basically.
Yeah,
that's exactly what happened. So yeah, Atletico, they did typical Simeone in the Champions League game. Typical Simeone performance, when just everything went exactly as they wanted. And congrats to them. And Inter just fell flat in the second leg. And I'm kind of happy that karma came up to them. And I'm gonna say that because last year they were not deserving that final. You can tell
they did have an easier draw last year.
It's one of the easiest runs I remember in the Champions League.
But that's the beauty of the Champions League, which is going to change next year, though.
I know, but it's
that's not going to happen anymore. There isn't going to be these draws that are going to cause this much.
I mean, the playoff round still stays the same, though.
The playoff round stays the same, but I don't think the ties are going to be based on the way that the the draw is like now.
It's just going to be less weak teams in the playoff round. That's what's going to happen because they're going to be killed off in that 9.
They're not going to get past the group stage the same way because they're going to be playing against the best teams. It's going to be interesting next year. We'll see how that goes, and we'll be here to talk about it.
Definitely. You know? And then, I guess the conclusion is that Atletico were at their best, and Inter just fell flat. Whether it was they were outplayed or maybe they got complacent after scoring that one goal that put them ahead in a tie by 2 goals, and I don't know. It was. I'm just happy Inter are out because again, karma of last year came up to them, and I'm happy it happened.
So now we can move on to the final tie.
Final tie.
The Arsenal.
I'll say the Porto.
No.
Okay, I have a controversial statement.
Okay, let's hear it.
Porto were the better team in those 2 games. Prove me wrong.
How about you prove it to me? How about you prove me how you thought Porto were the better teams? I will say Porto were the better tactical team. Their tactics were spot on. They played amazing. They played top. And they made it really difficult for us. But to say that they outplayed us...
Not outplay, I would just say better team.
Better team. I don't see it that way. I think the first game, Arsenal had a lot of things going into that game. All the talk about how we haven't been there for 7 years. We haven't been out of the round of 16 for 14 years. And all of these players are young. You have to remember how young the Arsenal team is. I think only a few players on that team have been to the Champions League past the stage. Partey didn't play. Jorginho only came on for the first game in the second half. And everyone else, I feel like, even Jesus wasn't there. So you don't have them in Zinchenko. So you didn't have the experienced players that you need in that tie to tell you, like, calm down. And so we were, from the get-go, you saw with Declan Rice getting that yellow in the second minute, with Saliba making sloppy passes, which is really not what you expect from Saliba. And the pitch was terrible from the beginning. I could tell, this pitch, the ball was bobbling everywhere, and I could tell we're not going to be able to play our way. And then you had the refs.
Now you made it obvious why you like Xavi. You make exactly the same mistakes as he does. The grass was too tall. The pitch was uneven. It was
too tall, and it was terrible pitch. Let's just be honest. And when you're a team that tries to play fast touch football the way we do, and trying to move the ball on possession based, it's a lot harder when you're misplacing passes, and your best players like Declan Rice and Saliba are also misplacing passes. And so all of that combined with Porto falling every single second and the ref calling it a foul, us getting 20 corners in every single quarter, all the Porto players falling on the ground and the ref calling it, and us getting used to that Champions League refs. We're used to the Premier League. We're used to extra time, and we're used to the refs letting it play out a little bit, even though I still don't think Premier League refs are that great. But the Champions League refs are a completely different animal, and we're definitely inexperienced, and it showed in that first leg. In the second leg, I feel like we came out, and again, it was really tough. They were doing really well, and they just showed us that you're not going to break us down easily. And the goal from Trossard and Odegaard opening them up was just pure perfection. I think Odegaard was phenomenal that night. He was the best player on the pitch for me. And Trossard, we have to give credit to Trossard too. I don't think a lot of people giving him credit for that goal. I think that was very clinical, and he might be one of the most clinical players on our team. And so I just think Odegaard did really well, and he really set the pace for that game. And what do you think about that second goal that was disallowed? Did you see that?
Oh yeah, it was a clear foul though, no?
It was a clear foul in terms of that. Havertz pulled his shirt, and it was too long. And so it was obvious, and every single day of the week they're going to give that. However, I do still think that even if he didn't pull that shirt, this is where I go back to my pet peeve. Even if I think that if he doesn't pull his shirt, I don't see him getting to that ball. I still see that being a goal. And so it really comes down to like, yes, the rules are stationary, and I don't disagree with the call, but I do think that even if Havertz didn't pull his shirt,
But then,
Porto did pretty poorly there, and they got pretty lucky that we didn't score that goal. So if you see it from that perspective, we would have been 2-0 up, and then Jesus comes on and is electric from the first minute and almost gets a goal. And the goalie did really well there to get a touch there, but it went between his leg, and you never know with those ones. And so that I don't remember a Porto chance other than, okay, we can talk about some of the chances if you remember, but I don't specifically remember a really strong chance from Porto
the first game,
in the second game.
Second game, yeah. I'm trying. No, I think there was good. I think there were a couple of situations really close to scoring. There wasn't a clear cut chance, 100%. But the reason I agree with the things you said, 300%. Besides the field, the pitch being uneven and stuff. And no, sorry,
it was clear to me. I don't know.
I know. Even if that's the case, I don't think that's ever should be used as an excuse. But
it's not an excuse. To me, we can't play the way we want to.
That's true.
That's what happens though when you go away. Used to that. You have to get used to that. You have to be experienced, and so that's what. To my excuse that they were not experienced enough, and they learned. And I think this is going to be a big learning experience. That the Champions League is not easy. Porto have been in the round of 16
for years.
They've been in the round of 8 two times in the last maybe 6-7 years. Last time in 2020, I believe. Mm-hmm. And they've played Man City, and they've played this similar style. They've played Chelsea, and they've played this similar style. So I'm not surprised that they did well. But I hate that type of football. They literally don't want to play football. They came into the tie and said, we're going to be I'm trying to find the word for it, but I don't want to come too harsh. But they basically wanted to annoy the Arsenal team as much as they can.
But don't you think there is beauty in that?
There is beauty in that. But
I think it's beautiful until the team plays against your face.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you face a team like that, I was so annoyed over the two ties that the ref every single time, like especially the first tie, they were falling over, and they were just like, as a neutral, if you watch that game, you'd be like, what is going on? Why are these players all so soft? You know? And so this idea that they play a fair game, that they did a good job, like, I don't know. It's hard for me to respect that type of football, even though I think that's the type of football you need to play against Arsenal, because when you play a possession style football against Arsenal, most of the time Arsenal are going to be the more dominant team.
Would you say, though, that in those two games that everything went under Porto's control? Would you not say that?
I feel like Arsenal was in control too. I never felt that we can lose this tie. I felt that the first game, we were a little sloppy, and it was all from our mistake that they scored. We had multiple times that we can get the ball out, and we decided that we wanted to push forward and try to score a goal at the very end, and we got hurt. And so I think that was the only chance that I really felt like, and we can debate that goal, but I think the second time we came out, and I do have to say I was a little nervous that I wanted to get the goal soon, because I think that was going to change the game. And I was glad that we got it in the first half. That made it really more comfortable for me, because I knew that eventually we're going to get that second one. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but we went to penalties, and we won the game. But I think as a fan, the way they play, it's very nerve-wracking because of the way they play, but I don't feel like we ever were out of control of the game. I felt like it was an even game in that sense. So I think you're looking at it from the perspective as a Porto team that's saying, oh, wow, they're able to do that against Arsenal. But when you play that way, you can do that against a lot of teams because you don't have to necessarily win the game. That's why these cup ties are so difficult, because you could just try to go for a draw and then go to penalties. And so that's what they were doing from day one. They just wanted to draw. They didn't want to win the game. So when the Porto coach came out that, Arsenal want to play, but we want to win, that is completely the opposite of what I thought. I thought Arsenal want to play, Arsenal want to win, but you want to just draw.
I would not take his words seriously because he's just that type of person to say stuff just to anger people. He's trying to be Mourinho, but I guess he'll never get the results of Mourinho. Yeah, but just for me, the fact when I say they were in the control, it's more of like in the thing that, how do I explain it? I just think the tie went exactly the way they wanted, starting from the first game when their goal was to frustrate you, not to let you score, and if that happens, maybe to score the goal, which happened for them on the last second. Wait, it happened. And the second game, same situation with different. Yeah, I think the conceding the goal kind of killed what they wanted from the game. They changed their game plan slightly, but it's still, I feel like they were controlling everything they wanted to control. And besides the one goal, I don't remember Arsenal. Yes, there was a period of time when Arsenal actually were pressing high, and I thought second goal was coming, but there was a time when Porto were panicking. I felt like it. But once that period was over, I think Arteta, once he removed Jorginho and he put Rice as the only central midfielder, defensive central midfielder, and Havertz as number 8, that's when the problem started for Arsenal. That's when Arsenal lost the control of the game. Because
I also think that the players were a little tired.
Most likely, yeah.
From the Brentford game. That was a really tough game. But similar type of game, honestly, where we had to score in the last few minutes. We scored in the 86th minute. And I think when you play like that, and unfortunately this season we've had like injuries to players that Arteta trusts, right? And we have the players, if everyone is healthy, we have a pretty good depth, but just the key players that we've needed in the right times have not been there the whole season. And so again, I feel like some of these players are getting overused. And so that's why you saw when they went on that break and they came back, they were just a completely different animal. And I think it's just sometimes when you're tired, it just doesn't work out that way. And so I know it's excuses and all the teams are going to be tired, but when you're playing a game like the way Porto play, you have to be on top of your game. And so I respect Porto for being able to, like, they made very few mistakes. And so to play that type of game under that pressure with that crowd and that atmosphere and not be giving away mistakes, that's what Arsenal wanted. They wanted to make those mistakes. They wanted to press high. They wanted to get the ball back sooner and make those mistakes. But the way that they were very tight and they really cramped the midfield. And so they made us go wide the whole time. And Saka, I thought he had one of his worst games in that second game.
Interesting, because actually
the left back was just, what's his name? The Wimble? I forget what his name.
I forgot his name too, but I know. Yeah, he definitely was.
He was amazing. Like he stopped him the whole game.
But to be honest, when you say Saka was poor, maybe Saka individually was poor, but I thought his connection and the chemistry they had, specifically in that game between him, Saka, Odegaard, and White, was amazing. I think that's still the area where they created the most problems for Porto, which actually happens to most of the Arsenal games because that's the main source of attack for Arsenal. But to me, it's just, I don't know, I like Porto. I knew Porto were going to be tough on Arsenal. I knew that's going to happen, but I still expected a little bit more from Arsenal. I thought it was going to be, as I told you, after the first game, I thought Arsenal were going to be 3-4-0 up in the second game.
Yeah.
And that's what I expected when Trossard scored. I thought, you know what, this is going to 3-4-0 category, but it did not seem like that. And that's why I think, aside from penalties, everything went Porto's way, sorry. Aside from penalties. When it came to penalties, I would like to know whoever is goalkeeper coach at Porto, how did he prepare the goalkeeper for the penalties? Because Korsty is a very good goalkeeper. He's one of the best goalkeepers in the world, upcoming goalkeepers.
Yeah.
And the way he performed at penalties was just weird.
Yeah, but I don't think that any of those were savable.
But it reminded me of the performance, if you remember, Jan Oblak's performance against Real Madrid in the Champions League final when it came to penalties, when he was just looking like an amateur goalkeeper, like a non-professional. And
Yeah, he especially the soccer goal. He just
so I don't remember Saka ever shooting in the middle. I don't know if you do. Maybe
he has this
because
penalty this year. He scored in the middle.
okay, but I think mostly he shoots to the side. No, most of the time. So
a lot of times he defers to the right.
Mhm.
So this was the first time I remember for a while that he went to his left, and he spoke about it afterwards to Sky Sports after the game, and he was talking about how like he knew yesterday, the day before, that he was going to shoot that way. Like he already knew, so he never was. And that's one of the things that like Guardiola has said too in the past is just make your mind up and just pick that side and don't worry about which way you're going to go. Just go that way. And when you do that, a lot of times is more successful than when you look at the goalkeeper and try to decide which side you're going to go.
The sure is I've been a goalkeeper my entire life. I'm more of on the other side of the table, so I'm not sure how the strikers approach the problem. For me, it's always been just knowing where the striker mostly scores, but I think the other two factors were intuition. I relied a lot on the intuition. Sometimes I just had the feeling where the shot is going to be. Sometimes I had the feeling. I don't know where it came from, how it came from, but just sometimes I just knew where the ball is going to go. And the second one is you have to look at the run up and the way the striker places his foot. I don't know. I just Porto's goalkeeper disappoint. Costa, he's a great goalkeeper. I don't know. Maybe there wasn't that much studying done into the penalties. Maybe they did not expect, which is weird though. If you side like Porto who is going to defend, you always prepare for penalties. So I would like to actually read about how did Porto prepare for these penalties because again, as a Porto side, you're mostly going to be preparing for the penalty shootouts. So how exactly did they prepare for penalties? I would like to know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Arsenal went through probably deservedly. If Porto went through, I don't think football-wise that would have been fair.
Yeah.
But I have to give the credit to them. They were amazing.
Yeah. I think this was a good episode. And so we're going to try to do this as often as possible. At least once a week, we're going to meet and discuss different topics in the football world. We are fans of our teams, but we're going to try to be a little less biased.
Yeah, definitely.
and try to talk about just football itself. And so there's a lot to talk about. We're excited. And so,
yeah, football, you can always spend hours just talking about one team. And last thing we want to say is if there's any specific guys question you want us to address, any specific team's performance, anything, we're always down to discuss it. So
yeah, and also if you guys can subscribe and like this video, it would be really greatly appreciated. We're starting brand new, so anything will help. We do have a goal that like in the next month or two we'll get like 1,000 subscribers. That's our beginning goal, and so anything will be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
So yeah, any feedback you can give, and if you like the video, please tell your friends, all the football fans you know, tell them to watch this video. It's gonna get only better from here, only more fun, more and more interesting, more analysis, more deep analysis, more tactical analysis. We're all gonna go through that.
Yep, exactly. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.